This podcast is sponsored by the Lego Group. Now we are here, Tommy. We've had the Spanish Grand Prix. And why don't you show us both of the beautiful cars that we have been showcasing this weekend? Amazing to be sponsored by the Lego Group, like ridiculous. And you've been building these like a little kid.
I know, right?
They look amazing. They would have taken me a lot longer if everybody watched the other Lego video we did. But it's got some pride of place in the background there.
Exactly. This is basically my dream job. If you'd have told young child Tommy that his job would be building Formula One Lego set, I would basically be like, what have I done to deserve this joy?
All 693 pieces, that was?
Yeah, this took me about 3 hours, 4 hours maybe.
Yeah, so 4 working days for me then.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool working, look at that, little working steering wheel as well.
Did you use the Lego Builder app where you can build in 3D and track your progress and all that sort of stuff, or were you very much just more...
I went old school with the manual,
yeah.
But you can do that if you wish, which is very, very cool little addition. And speaking of cool little addition, there's even a little Ayrton Senna minifigure as well.
That's
on
cute.
A little display with his obviously iconic yellow helmet design. So that's really cool. And what legendary car.
The other McLaren?
Let's get that one.
Oh, I thought you were going to do something amazing and hold them both, but no.
I'm not risking that.
Can't do it.
Here we go. And then a more modern day. This is the kid set, but still lovely little detail. The halo, all the sticker. This one's got a lot of stickers for it as well, so you can.
You do love a sticker.
Yeah, sticker up the livery. The classic Pirelli wheels as well.
Chrome wheels, wasn't it? Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. Very cool.
Okay, so if you want to find out more about those products, there's a link in the description. And also, the Lego Group are at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, in the family zone between the 5th and 7th of July. Myself and Tommy are going to go and visit there as well at some point. So be sure to go and check that out. And let's get into this Monday Race Review podcast. It's Spanish Grand Prix post-race edition. And we are going to dive into the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya chaos. The 10 out of 10 that beat the Canadian Grand Prix for entertainment. Aren't we right, Tommy?
Yeah, you're taking the mick, but it wasn't actually that bad. And of course, it was nowhere near Canada, but Canada, for me, was one of the best races I've seen in a very, very long time. But for Catalunya, it's pretty decent. And if this is now like the baseline boring Grand Prix, I'll absolutely take it because there was plenty to entertain.
I do love that. There was someone in Twitch that said that you'd said this for the last 4 years of Spain, that if this is Spain, then I'm happy. So maybe, just maybe, this circuit is actually a hidden gem and we just don't know it. But yeah, it was an okay race. It wasn't too bad. There was some strategy elements and all kinds of things to keep our minds ticking over. So let's dive straight into it, shall we? And begin with your most memorable moment, Thomas.
Yes, indeed. It was. Has to be really Verstappen versus Norris, and that little strategy battle that maybe didn't quite pan out as amazing as maybe we have had in the past, but it kept us guessing throughout the whole race. Thankfully, it was a two-stop. I'm always a little bit pessimistic when they say a two-stop because probably one-stops have sort of been around for far too long now. And I always get a bit pessimistic when they're like, it is a two-stop, because teams always seem to try and make it a one-stop regardless. And there was one point, actually, where it looked like Lando. They might even try something like that. But yeah, it kept us guessing and made the race quite exciting, because there were moments where it looked like Lando was chasing. And it did look like at one point Norris was kind of, going to come back at Verstappen and get him at the end, but it kind of Max had it covered that he kind of got back on the same strategy as Lando. But yeah, it was a good battle, and another Max Verstappen first, Lando Norris second, which seems to be like the new Hambot Ver, doesn't it, at the moment?
Certainly does. It was an intriguing part of the race for sure. Just keeping an eye on that. McLaren obviously rolling the dice a little bit and going for something different, because they knew that if they just followed Verstappen into the pits, they would probably stay behind Verstappen because they didn't have the pace to pass, especially around Spain. You have to have a decent sort of half a second in hand in order to get close and get past. And I think that McLaren realised that wasn't the case. So they went for something different. I think they went 6 laps longer in that first stint on the soft tyres. Lando did a great job. The problem for McLaren is that Lando lost the lead at the start. That's the problem, where they were then having to chase and pass Verstappen. Whereas if they'd kept the lead, or at least stayed ahead of Verstappen, even if Russell swings around the outside, there's still a great chance for Lando to win that race. Mercedes didn't have the race pace that perhaps some of us thought they might bring today. They were just a little bit off. But unfortunately, McLaren did something slightly different. It was good fun to watch, for sure, to see something slightly different. And it kept us intrigued, let's say. We weren't on the edges of our seat, but we were getting there towards the end. First question, P1 Patreon member Alan Endope. Are the strategies that McLaren have been doing preventing Lando from getting these wins? No. What has prevented Lando Norris from winning the Spanish Grand Prix is not getting a good enough start and staying ahead of Max Verstappen. That was the problem there. I have no negative thoughts or feelings towards what McLaren decided with that strategy. I think that it was the right decision to go something different, because you never know. An Imola situation, Verstappen's tyres start graining towards the end. Maybe they've bit the bullet a bit too early on the softs on that last stint, and McLaren actually get it right by having fresher softs towards the end. There were so many different variables that I appreciate McLaren went for something a little bit left field compared to what Verstappen and Red Bull were doing. There was nothing wrong with the strategy. Had Norris finished 3rd or 4th, then sure. But they comfortably finished 2nd and took it to Verstappen as good as they could.
They were maybe a little bit concerned that they would finish 3rd, because they kind of were talking to him like, well, do we want to finish 1st or 3rd here and like go for it, but potentially sacrifice it? But it was kind of, in the end, 2nd if he'd have, gone exactly the same as Verstappen, and maybe, you never know, you might get a little bit of luck. We saw what happened at Miami, for example. He got that good fortune because he stayed out longer. We'll get into this later, but there weren't any cars retiring, and there's a very low chance. It's actually the 2nd year in a row that everyone has finished the Spanish Grand Prix. So don't usually get safety cars and craziness here, but it was worth a risk. And I think in a weird way, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do wonder how the strategy paid out. If I think back to 2021, and when you had that Verstappen and Hamilton battle here, those two were so far ahead of the pack that Hamilton could afford to do something completely different. He was never going to lose positions. But the problem Lando had, and it's a nice problem to have in Formula One, is the pack is actually so close now that he didn't have that luxury where he could stay out so long and still be 2nd and absolutely go for it at the end, because he had to pass lots of cars. And I do wonder if Hamilton hadn't have gone for the soft tyres at the end, and Lando could have had that, if Lando had gone behind Hamilton, it would have made his race so much more difficult because he was on softs as well and it would have been struggled to pass. But if that hadn't have happened, maybe they could have waited later and see if he could just go absolutely crazy, like, just destroy your tyres at the end, soft tyre runs, give us like 10 qualifying laps at the end and see if you can do it. But it didn't work out that way, which is a shame.
Yeah, we don't deal with ifs, buts and maybes on this podcast. We deal with absolutes, don't we, Tommy? And the absolute
Max has made
facts is that the Mercedes and Ferrari are, as you say, much closer than when we had that 2021 dogfight between Verstappen and Hamilton, and it doesn't open up all these strategy windows and opportunities to do something absolutely ridiculous. With it also being Spain, it's hard to overtake. So it had to. Well, we thought at one point during the watch along that Lando might have got a bit more stuck than he did, but he managed to get through that pack of sort of Hamilton, Russell, Sainz.
I don't get this narrative that McLaren. What I will say is, I don't get this narrative that McLaren have kind of like bottled the win for Lando. I don't see where that's come in at all. Personally, like, I see a few people saying it could have done something different, maybe, but
what could they have done differently?
For me, if I look at this question of McLaren have been preventing Lando from getting these wins. What has been preventing Lando from getting wins is someone called Max Verstappen, because I think it all came down to that. Lando pushed him on the grass at the start, and somehow Max still managed to get ahead of him into turn one. And it was all kind of undone there, because I think Lando said in his conversations afterwards, he admitted that McLaren had the best car today. He was like, McLaren was the best car, we should have won, but it all came undone at the start. And what he said was the fact that the tyres, he had better tyres than Russell, but you only have a very short window where you can attack, and Max did that right at the start with his absolutely amazing move around the outside of Russell. But by the time Lando got there with Russell, the tyres are too hot, it's all warmed up, and you kind of like stuck in dirty air again. So it was, unfortunately for him, kind of lost at the start, not through like a McLaren blunder really. But that, to give him his credit, like, it is the nature of Barcelona. Like it's a tough, the pole position it's not like a slam dunk pole position like Monaco where you like got a perfect chance. You can quite easily lose it there.
Yeah, and also people wondering why didn't they go for a one stop with Lando. I don't think that would have worked either, because you saw the hard tyres and how slow they were on Russell's car and Sainz's car. Had he been on that for another 20 laps more than what those two decided to go on, I think Lando would have been in a much worse position. So McLaren did what they took their learnings from practice. They knew which tyres would work well. They did something as different as they possibly could. I don't think they could have gone and done anything any more extreme to win the race. It was, as Tommy said, and I've sort of alluded to, it was lost at the start. So unfortunate for Lando, because of course being on pole position is not the best place to start sometimes for the Spanish Grand Prix. Next question, Trin22_ asks, is it time to finally get rid of the Driver of the Day award? I know it's a fun novelty thing, but it's pointless if used incorrectly. So I feel like you might be slightly hypocritical, Trin, with what you've said here, and the fact that you're saying get rid of it, but then it's a fun novelty thing, but it's useless. The whole point is that it is a fun novelty thing. It's a fan vote. You can't control the fans or how they vote. A lot of fans are very blindly in favour of their own driver. So yes, it is slightly irritating if a driver that's done very well clearly still doesn't win the Driver of the Day award. But it is a fun novelty thing where Verstappen, I think, at one point won Driver of the Day, and he didn't even finish the race, I think, maybe in Kota once. So
that's what I remember.
There are plenty of moments that are much more ludicrous than this. Of course, Lando won this weekend. He still drove an amazing race, don't get me wrong. Lando drove a great race, but Max drove better, in my opinion, and perhaps there was a couple of others that deserved it as well. But it's just a popularity contest. It's a shame that Max didn't win it, but he doesn't win it anymore because people expect him to win, and therefore Driver of the Day is basically underdog of the day. Is kind of that what that award is. Yeah,
very true. Maybe this is just because I'm 50 years old and have been watching the sport for forever that it just doesn't bother me that much, Driver of the Day, and it to the point where like I almost don't even really take it in, that it doesn't annoy me so much. I see a lot of fans getting really like frustrated by it. It's like, no, that's not Driver of the Day. But at the end of the day, it is like this question saying, it's a fun novelty award, and yes, it's wrong more often than it's not, because Max has driven an absolutely superb race. But then, like you said, it was ironic that Max. It was such a meme in like 2017 and 2016 when Formula One boomed in the Netherlands that Max Verstappen would get the award even if he'd just kind of finished fourth in a normal race. But now he's put in this absolutely unbelievable performance. I'm sure Max Verstappen is definitely not crying into his 61st Grand Prix victory trophy and going, oh, I really wish I'd won Driver of the Day. So, and
also as well, it's Trin's comment here, but it's pointless if used incorrectly. It's also pointless if used correctly as well. There is no point.
There's
to
no
Driver
gain.
Of the Day awards.
Yeah.
You don't gain any points.
A novelty award at the end of the year, and
it's just a bit of bants.
Exactly.
Okay, let's go to my most memorable moment now, and it is Russell's epic start. I mean, my goodness gracious me. Who saw that coming from fourth on the grid? First question, 2001 Joe _ Mendy. How much closer are Mercedes to potentially winning a race before the year is out? Well, Canada was a slam dunk. They should have won that race, hands down. They had the fastest car in those conditions. Maybe not all of the conditions, because of course Russell got caught quite a lot. But Mercedes should have won Canada one way or another. Spain, they've clearly they're still missing a little bit. Lewis, I think, was quite surprised to be on the podium or being somewhere close. And he said without his terrible start, for want of a better word of what he used, he may have been a bit closer to the front two, but Mercedes aren't there yet. They're figuring their car out finally by the looks of things. Winning a race is definitely possible, though. 15, 20 seconds back, maybe should have been 10, maybe if Lewis didn't have that bad start. That's in the sort of region of capitalising if someone makes a mistake or if someone trips over somebody. So yeah, Mercedes definitely have a great chance, purely because they've got two amazing drivers as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if they won a race before the year is out. But I also wouldn't get too carried away that it will happen at Austria next weekend.
Yeah, Mercedes are definitely far better off than they were before. It does feel like Mercedes will surely get a win, but we've kind of been saying that for a very long time. I think the problem for most of the grid here is just Max Verstappen being Max Verstappen and doesn't, he rarely scuppers his chance of winning. So, but Mercedes are looking a lot better. It was another situation where George is at the front at the start of the race, and then somehow Hamilton's ahead of him. But what I would say to that, and we'll get into this next, is that I think, let's be honest, like George got the bad strategy and the bad pit stop there. So, but it's still a case of like, to me, watching that race, like Hamilton was absolutely flying when he put new tyres on. And I'm sure a lot of probably like Lewis Hamilton fans probably feel that they watch him and at the moment and just go like, if he'd started higher up or if he could just bag like a pole position, like he would have a really good chance of like getting a victory. But it just doesn't quite. He shows moments of brilliance, but he's not like at the front like he used to be to like make it stick. That's kind of what's happened in the last couple of races. So I feel like they'll get there. And it'd be great to see, because obviously Hamilton leaving Mercedes, it'd be cool for him to get a win before he goes, but we'll have to wait and see. Absolutely wild stat now that since Max won in the 2016 race when he got his maiden win, he's now won more races than Hamilton since that moment, which is quite a wild thing. Very wild.
That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Let's touch slightly on George's start, because that was technically what my memorable moment was.
So good. It was so good.
Fourth on the grid, Lando and Max. They knew themselves that they were hampering each other because neither were slipstreaming the other person. They were literally side by side down towards turn one almost the entire way. George got a slightly better start than Lewis, and just slingshot McGee. Slipstream, a bit more slipstream, swings out to the racing line, and then just sweeps all the way around the outside. It could
great.
not have been more
He knew what
textbook.
to do straight away, didn't he? Yeah, he knew what he was doing straight away. It was just like, thank you very much. 2 slipstreams on the racing line, boom. Like, yeah, it was perfectly executed.
Certainly was. Unfortunately, it did not convert into a victory for George Russell. Next question. P1 Patreon member Savage Monkey 3.0. Now that Lewis got P3, is this now a good time for people to stop saying they are sabotaging his car? It's quite the story that's sort of come here. And it doesn't help that Hamilton sort of started these murmurs and then it's sort of snowballed from there. Of course, Hamilton, I think in Monaco, said he doesn't think he'll out-qualify George for the rest of the year and things like this.
He makes slight little digs, doesn't he, that are quite cryptic, that he doesn't...
Of course, yeah. The Team LH especially are going to latch onto him and be like, my driver's being sabotaged. And I mean, fair enough, I get it. As a fan, if I heard my driver saying, well, I'm probably not going to qualify my teammate for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and the way he says it
why?
was like, for reasons, and almost like reasons, and doesn't really go into it.
What are those
reasons?
Like, but I think it's fair to say that for the Spanish Grand Prix, individually, Lewis got the better strategy, the better pit stop, and beat George Russell out on track. There was no team orders to say, no, Lewis, can't go through. None of that stuff. So, and again, it just comes back to Why would Mercedes sabotage the driver that has created a legacy with their team? What is there to gain? I do not understand. I don't get it.
It's not even that. It's why would a Formula One team sabotage their own car? Full stop. We had these conversations when I think you could go back to when Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen were teammates, and Max Verstappen was having a great run. Daniel Ricciardo, I think, went through like 4 or 5 races where his car was the one that kept breaking down, and suddenly it's like, oh, Max is the golden boy. They're going to sabotage. Like, what? Why would teams spend so much money, have so many mechanics? They're all working. Like, it's actually like very disrespectful to all the like the hardworking individuals that, and I can imagine like these mechanics and stuff that do these long nights and away from their families and stuff, and then they hear these rumors. It must be like very like disappointing and kind of annoying, because they're like working their asses off basically to deliver and do the best they can, and then people think that they're tampering or doing something silly with the car. It's just a ridiculous thing to say. Like, no team goes racing and just basically breaks their own car. Like, it's just a stupid thing to even suggest.
Yeah, because they're a bit heartbroken that they're leaving for another team, or it's not. This isn't
like I totally get. Like, even if they'd done like the strategies, and they'd given like George the strategies now, it wouldn't be very popular. It'd be very, very unpopular. But you could kind of say, well, they're not breaking any laws or rules or anything. Like, they're backing a driver that's going to be with them in the future. But to go to the point of saying they're sabotaging, like, it's just not right.
It's not at all. So let's move on now to another question and another team and another driver. And it comes from Oxider Brock, and the statement is, Perez, make it make sense. I don't know. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. Look, where's the sabotage Perez rumours? You know what I mean? Like, why does he fall off a cliff just immediately? He signs a contract and goes, done for the year. It's just a drop off in form that I'd love to know why. It's not. Perez is a seasoned, experienced driver that has shown at times that he is world class, and he's had some victories that have been incredible, and he was the street track king for a little while, and all of this sort of stuff. How is he now battling a stake on lap 52 or whatever it was? I don't. What direction did Red Bull go with?
He was half a second off being a minute behind Verstappen at the flag.
Yeah, I can't see that as Perez being that bad. It doesn't make sense. Like, what direction does this car go in when the season starts compared to sort of where it is now? And it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. It's one thing that I can't weigh in on because I don't know. I have not even the foggiest as to why this is happening with Perez.
Yeah, it is one of those difficult things to know, because he's clearly not that bad. Like, if you put Perez in I don't know, like another team, he's not finishing a minute behind his teammate. And part of it is that Verstappen is really, 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 really good, but also there's obviously just something there that's not working for him. And Helmut Marko said it in the qualifying one, we're at a more normal track now, he should do better. And on paper, he's got points, but he's still a minute off the lead. Like when the bar is low when that's a better performance, that he's a minute off and only just beaten an Alpine. Like, he's racing the Alpines while Max is winning the race. And I'd love to know like what like his honest, like real thoughts of, you know, what goes through his head when he pulls into Parc Ferme and Max is there celebrating another win and he's just finished a minute behind in eighth. And that's a better race than he's had in the last 2 Grand Prix as well. It's crazy because it is the form is exactly the same as last year, where it's kind of started, oh, Perez is actually doing decent. He's going to definitely keep his seat. Sign new contract, goodbye. Like, absolute nosedive off a cliff. Can't even, like, one of, if not the worst performing driver against their teammate. Like, it's wild how bad it is.
Exactly. The thing is, right, if he was constantly off the pace from round one to now, you go, well, maybe it's understandable. He doesn't like the car, the philosophy, whatever it might be. But he has these starts to the season where you go, well, Perez is 10, 15 seconds off Max or something. Perfect. Well done. That's great. And then it just snaps. And then he goes, I can't drive anymore. I don't get it. So my heart genuinely goes out to Perez, because clearly something does not work with Perez and him. And we've seen it many times before with other drivers when they go to Red Bull. It doesn't work for them. Of course, Albon has gone on the High Performance podcast and spoken about how Max has such a unique sort of driving style and how much he loves it on the nose, but it's not like, it's insane like how much he wants it on the nose. So I wonder if it is just something that Perez cannot get his head around, and it's as simple as that. But either or, we will leave it there, because quite frankly, it's just
a boring
bizarre
conversation
until
Red Bull actually come out and say, right, Perez, you've got 3 more races. If you don't pick up, you're getting fired. There's not really anything else we can talk about. No. Like, it's the same conversation again and again and again.
Let's speak about drivers that aren't doing great. Pfizer Car 123BS comes in with, how is Sargent still last? Tsunoda had 3 stops and a penalty. Albon started from the pit lane and went into the gravel. Yeah, Logan Sargent.
It wasn't even just last. He was like, you blinked and he was like, it was like, oh, I think you said, like, Logan, this is your chance, and then you blinked and he was 20 seconds behind him.
Well, it was his chance in qualifying, and it was also his chance in the race. I think he was around 15, 20 seconds behind Albon. Albon went into the gravel on his soft tyres. You can see his soft tyres weren't great after going into the gravel. It's not going to do the compound any good. I think it was down to about 12. You think, okay, Logan, championship back on at Williams. And then you blinked and he'd lost 8 seconds.
Fight for P20 between him and...
Yeah, and then you blinked and he's lost nearly 10 seconds to his teammate again. It is bizarre, but I think with this one it's a slightly easier conversation, because he has not shown any promise compared to Albon. He's not out-qualified him once in a normal... I think he's done it once maybe in a sprint, but realistically he's not had even one weekend to showcase that he's got
what it takes to be a Formula 1 driver. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, he's not horrific. He's not someone that's 4 seconds off the pace, but he's not good enough to keep a Formula 1 seat. And that's a very fair assessment, I think. I know there are some people that think, oh, give Logan till the end of the year because he lost the car in Australia. Now he had to give it to Albon and it's put him on the back foot for the rest of his life. No, he has to at some point, if that is something that so drastically affected him. But you then look at his performances before that and you go, the only time he's actually scored points is when 2 people got disqualified. It's not like he's had that dip in form from there and you go, give him a chance. Yeah. He's not had form.
It's not like I'm trying to think of like drivers, like even like Yuki Tsunoda, right? Like he had a pretty terrible first year. He was crashing a lot, but there was that speed there where you're like, if it clicks, it will click, and he's got a chance, and that's why like a team that's backed him and a bit more experience. Whereas Logan, like you say, never has shown that. Just something that I have to mention on the podcast, which is absolutely brutal, is did you see the clip of David Coulthard during I think it's the Dutch coverage via Play, and he was doing like a Ted's Notebook style sort of thing where he's like walking around, and he's going around the car park where the drivers park in the paddock, and he goes up to a car that's basically parked, and they've like bumped the nose into the bollard, and he's like, can you guess whose car this is? Yep, that's right, it's Logan Sargent's. And he was like, that is so savage. And it was actually Logan. Was it actually Logan's car? It was actually Logan's like car that had bumped into the bollard in the car park.
Oh no.
Which is just like a case of like when it rains it pours. And the sad thing for Logan is he is becoming like the Latifi character now, isn't he, where he is just memed and kind of ridiculed, it has to be said. But the sad reality is like that's elite sport, and we all want Formula 1 to be the best 20 drivers in the world, and unfortunately Logan doesn't isn't like he's not one of them. Like I know it's a really brutal thing to say, but it's true. Like he's not. Like you can see that. So, but then the same conversation about will he stay for the next race? I think he's got time. Like they're just waiting for next year now.
Next year or just the summer break, and then they might make some tough decisions. Maybe. Perhaps we'll see. Next question: Ross Bella 16. Did Sainz deserve a penalty this weekend, or at least a warning? He had contact early on with his teammate, damaging his wing, and then later on with Lewis. Now, this is an interesting debate because Carlos Sainz within his own cockpit felt like he was being hard done by left, right and centre and thought that, was it Hamilton? He thought that Hamilton deserved a penalty.
He thought Hamilton should have got penalties. Even though,
from my opinion,
people think he's probably should
didn't touch. I didn't see them actually make any contact unless it was the tiniest slither of a love tap at the very best. Rubbing's racing. I don't know why that deserves a penalty. Maybe he felt because he rode up on the curb that it felt a little bit more sort of devastating from his perspective. But I think that with Sainz, he was very lucky to not get a penalty with Charles Leclerc. And he was going side by side there, went straight on, carried on, and we never heard anything from the stewards after it was being investigated.
I was literally watching that again. Like, how has he got away with that? He's basically made an overtake by going off.
Yeah, like they're still fighting wild, into turn one.
Like that's not a legal overtake.
Yeah, that's not a legal.
Legal overtake. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's true, isn't it? Like, ridiculous. That is not. You shouldn't be allowed to keep that position, regardless if it's your teammate that's the one that you've done it on.
And then he's saying about the rule book and we're not following it, and then we're just sat there going, "Are you the same guy that cut turn one?"
Yeah, if they followed the rule book, you'll be having a penalty, bro.
So what I found very fascinating was Charles Leclerc's interview after the race, where he was saying essentially that Carlos Sainz was putting on a bit of a show because of the state of his career, which, when you watch the video, it doesn't come across as savage as when you read it as a transcript. But I have just seen that Carlos Sainz has said back to that, it's too many times after the race that he complains about something, which, oh my God, it's boiling over.
Oh, come on.
What is happening? The bromance.
We need another Monza moment. They're really good mates, though, aren't they? Like
they are. They're great mates.
He said in our podcast that, like, even when the day comes, which will obviously be soon now, we didn't know that at the time, that they're not teammates anymore. Like, they'll still be like really good mates and probably like the closest mates on the grid. So,
and when you read stuff, as I say, like I'm sure the way he actually said it was, too many times after the race he complains about something. Sometimes you have a bit of a bicker, and we just go, "Oh my God, they hate each other." When the realistic,
they're racing drivers at the end of the day. Like,
they're racing drivers.
It's
they're
like Lando
down.
and Max, right? Like they'll have their moments. We said yesterday in that video, wouldn't expect Leclerc and Norris because they're playing on Twitch together, and then they had this whole beef, and Norris seemed annoyed that Leclerc didn't get a penalty and all that. Like it just happens in racing.
It does.
Yeah,
it's not
a bit surprised. It's not the big crazy
soapbox, like soap opera.
Yeah, it's not the Hamilton Verstappen 2021 thing that you think it is, really.
Oh, and they seem to get on as well.
They're fine now, aren't they? They're absolutely like having a laugh together and stuff, which is good to see, actually.
So yes, it was interesting that they were supposedly supposed to work together, Sainz and Leclerc was saving tyres, especially around the final corner. Carlos, perhaps with that information, this is what Charles was sort of suggesting, was that he didn't save his tyres as much around the final corner, got a run, and then tried to overtake his teammate, which, if that is the case, Carlos is obviously, he's trying to put a move on his teammate, he's trying to look good, but I don't know, it's just, obviously that's going to come out, and Charles is going to say that, so is that something that will actually benefit you in the long run if you're sort of defying what the team have sort of decided? But I do think that Carlos deserved the penalty for the Charles Leclerc overtake off track.
At the very least get told to give it back. It shouldn't matter that it's on your teammate. This isn't even banter now, but I'm just literally throwing it in the mix to have a conversation about it. But like Ferrari, if I put myself in a Ferrari fan's shoes, I'd be very disappointed about like how it was kind of like, oh my God, Ferrari looking amazing and picking up all the maximum points, and now they've fallen back behind Mercedes. Like that's pretty crazy. Yeah, cool.
Thanks for that statement. Moving on. It is disappointing, of course, because Ferrari obviously they won Monaco. They were looking great. Then Canada happened. Don't want to talk about that anymore. But then they accelerate their upgrade. I guess bringing their upgrades to certain races. They bring another one to Spain. You think, well, they're just going to take another step forward, and that's going to put them right at the front. Fred said, yeah, we're going to be back at the front in Spain. Don't worry about that. Trying to settle it all down. And they went backwards. They went backwards this weekend. It's not the only team to have brought significant upgrades and gone backwards. So I'm not going to ring the panic alarms just yet. But it is concerning for sure that they were over half a minute behind the end. Behind Max Verstappen, I think, at the end. So it's concerning for now, for sure. We go to Austria, where, of course, Charles Leclerc won there back in 2022. So
he did.
He's going to win again. Delirium back up to a 100. So, but yes, it is slightly concerning for Ferrari's sake that they might have just fallen behind to fourth fastest now, which is insane.
Oh yeah, that hurts, doesn't it? After where they were, and looking like, Leclerc was pretty close to Max in the title, and I think you even said at the time, you were like, if Norris was in that position, I'd be a bit more like, oh, you never know. And that is actually coming true, because it really does feel like McLaren are sometimes, they have had a race-winning car the last like 2 races. You could argue maybe even 3 if they'd done something spectacular at Monaco. I think even Monaco, I think some of that performance from Ferrari was just Charles being Charles at Monaco, and he's absolutely goated there. But McLaren have gone on this run of having a winning car at Miami, Imola, Canada, Spain. Like they have a genuine, McLaren.
They do.
Incredibly
cool. Great. Turned it around to McLaren, fair enough, yeah. Ferrari did actually, 31 seconds was Carlos, 22 seconds for Charles, so yeah, I'll be putting him P1 for Austria. Next question, P1 Patreon member Silan. How many fun races in a row must we have before Tommy recognises that Catalonia is a good track? Joking aside, I'm from Barcelona and I'm pretty sad that the track I've been to countless times since I was a child will probably get axed. Go on, Tommy. How many more races does it need?
Yeah,
it's not getting many, is it? But
no, it's not. I mean, look, it has been surprisingly good, like the last few races. I think what its advantage is, kind of in a weird way, even though it's terrible for overtaking because it's a lot of high-speed corners, it makes it a bit of a tyre killer. So, as Formula One fans, well, I speak for myself and others, are like longing for anything other than a one-stop nowadays, that if we just have that, it's like, oh, it's actually a pretty decent race, because we're just so used to one-stops, and Catalonia does actually provide that. So yeah, it has delivered recently, but I'm still adamant that like it's time for a change there. I don't think it's suited to modern Formula One. It's a testing track, and I'm not anti Madrid street circuit. I think it's going to be an interesting watch, personally.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Catalonia does not bring bangers to our TV screens. We have a moderately decent, like, intriguing one, and we go, oh, banger for Catalonia. Just, yeah, I'm interested to see if we can go, well, when we go to Madrid, that'll be good fun for a change, for sure. Let's go to biggest winner, driver or team. Who has won biggest winner? I think Alpine is a very, very good shout. 9th and 10th for the Alpine squad. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's pretty
surely
much,
Alpine. The fact that they're actually legitimately faster than Aston Martin as well is very impressive. Yeah. Like, that's going to sting for Alonso, isn't it? Because boy, was he loving the downfall.
After he was doing the little sort of little remarks and smirks about how Alpine were rubbish and Aston Martin were great. My God, Aston Martin have fallen off. Speaking of falling off, biggest loser. Who are we going to go for? I think it's RB. RB, absolute stinker. Just, so bad. I will actually give a small shout out for biggest winner to Stake, who actually for once didn't look like a dustbin, which I'm
Zhou
happy
did
to
well.
see.
Zhou had a good race.
If he actually
does that on a regular occasion. I worry it's just Spain though, because he had a really good race
Yeah.
in Spain last year. He just
did.
goated around Spain. But if he does pick up his form, then I think he does like genuinely have a sniff of like he can kind of waive his sponsorship money, and people will go, oh no, it is probably worth having you in the car.
The thing is, you need more than one race a year where you go, oh, Zhou's all right for that to happen, in my opinion, right?
Yeah,
like,
true.
You need to pop up a few races a year. So fingers crossed for Zhou, he can build upon that.
Also,
with a
biggest
slightly better
winner
stake.
for Kick Sauber if this is the race that makes Carlos signed to them, because they might have actually got good at the right time that Carlos goes, actually, no, you know what, I don't want to drive for Williams.
Maybe it was just a one-off for Williams. I feel like it might be. That
This is the. I know they've like changed their philosophy where they're supposedly good at all tracks now, but this is one of those that you're just like, no.
Good at all tracks, Spain. The baseline for all tracks, terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe it is a
maybe
slight.
They should have gone back to just bagging that P6 at Monza strategy.
We did talk about this, didn't we?
We did,
yeah.
That is going to be a really interesting debate at the end of the year, I think.
How many points they've scored and go,
got.
they could have got that just at Monza alone. Right, let's now have a look at our predictions that we made on Wednesday and see how we did. It's currently 27-25 to moi. Starting with biggest good surprise, I went for Lewis Hamilton, and I'm gonna cash that in because he beat George Russell. He got on the podium for the first time this year, and I think that is a biggest good surprise worthy.
Yep, I can't even argue that. It's wild to think that Hamilton podium is a big good surprise now, but it is his first of the year, so you've got to take that dub.
Yep.
Fair play.
Absolutely, and your dub?
And look, Sergio Perez absolutely turned his form around to beat the Alpines. It was a hard-fought race. 3 stops, what a drive on 3 stops.
Wild.
3 stops. If you take off his pit stop time, he's basically finishing.
He's still finishing
P8.
Yeah, he's still finishing P8 if he doesn't have that third pit stop. So no points for you for that. Biggest flop, right? So let's talk about this. So, George Russell leading into turn 1 ends up finishing just about 4th position, nearly 5th to the slowest car on the grid, Ferrari. It's no points.
You can't have this one.
But it was there was a small flop from Russell to finish 4th after leading from turn 1.
Maybe.
But no points, but just a nod to the flop.
A nod to the biggest flop, this one. This is a big W. Unfortunate. Oscar Piastri. I'm sorry. Oscar Piastri, yeah, definitely. 31 seconds off his teammate. When his teammates finished second, he messed up his qualifying.
Yeah.
He did not have a good weekend, poor Oscar. So
fair enough.
Yeah, rare Tommy biggest flop. W.
You did it. Hope you're happy with the money. Okay, so pole position, I went for Max Verstappen, and that is not correct, which is insane to think I've gone for Max, and that's not right.
Me too.
You went for Max as well. No. Top 3. In 3rd place, I went for Lando Norris. God damn it.
P3, I went for Sergio Perez.
Definitely forgot he had a 3-place grid penalty.
He had the penalty, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway because he still would have been about 5th, if that.
I think 8th still again.
Very true.
Charles Leclerc, I went for P2. That's not going to happen again for Austria. I'll be putting in P1.
I went for Lewis Hamilton P2, which is not right. Annoying. We've got the 2 kind of non-max podium sitters in the wrong order there. Otherwise, we'd have got the points.
We did. But we both went for Max Verstappen.
We sure did.
P1.
The easy 1-pointer.
We secured that point. And then one crazy prediction. Max Verstappen, Grand Chelem I went for, and that is not the case, sadly. He missed out on pole by 0.02 seconds and didn't lead until lap 2.
Yeah, so it's pretty washed, really.
Or lap 3.
No wonder he didn't win driver of the day. Pretty rubbish drive, really.
Awful drive. And then
My
Michael
crazy
Massing
prediction
it perfectly.
Absolutely smashed this one. Hamilton outqualifies Russell, obliterated him in qualifying by 0.02 of a second. Big dubs.
I can't believe you've managed to get a point from that. That's wild. I think you should get 0.002 of a point, to be honest with you.
Imagine I win the prediction. You add that and then I win the prediction championship by that point.
That would be quite something, wouldn't it, for the graphic? And then the 3 crazy predictions. David Doherty came in with a Sainz win. No. Steegey613. Sauber will get their first points of the season, which actually was a great shout, but sadly not close enough. And then racing numbats. All cars finish the race. No safety car or red flag. That's a banger. That's a stone cold banger.
Someone's watched a race at the circuit to Barcelona Catalunya before.
Did we even get a yellow flag? I know Albon went off, but he only went off for like a few seconds, and I never saw a graphic. So
it's pretty wild that the race wasn't that atrocious and that still came in. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't amazing, but it was like it's certainly not the worst race you've ever seen. Like normally when I think everyone did these kind of predictions because it was like, it's going to be an absolute snooze fest, and it was all right.
Yeah, it was okay. It was all right. It tees us up nicely for the triple header and going into Austria, which should be very close in qualifying at the very least. And then, we'll see about the race. And let's see. We're a week away. What is the weather saying?
Ooh.
Let's look at the weather.
More weather.
Oh, my God. Rain Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, baby.
That's bait. 100%.
That is bait.
It's going to just dry up completely.
I'll refresh it tomorrow after saying this, and it's going to be, sunny.
Yeah, by the time this is released, everyone will be like, what are you on about, Matt? It's sunny.
Yeah, but right now, as of recording, it is raining all weekend. So that'll be juicy. Tommy, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts. It's a sprint. Next one as well. So double race to look forward to. Well, a mini race, which... To be fair, if it does rain, love me a little sprint race in the wet when it's kind of could be changing.
We had one last year as well, didn't we?
Hulkenberg.
Did. That was where Hulk had that goated strategy of pitting on a sprint race. So yes,
sign me up for that again.
Sign me up indeed, and that race, the sprint race, will be on my birthday. That's my final thoughts. So look forward to each and every one of you bringing your birthday presents to the Matt P1 Tommy watch along. I look forward to opening them all there. I assume yours is already on the way, Tommy. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you could wrap that up and send... Oh, my God, can you imagine? That'd be the best birthday present ever. So looking forward to that one.
He is qualifying. He does like to deliver.
He does, sometimes. Maybe. We'll see. I'll let him know it's my birthday. Right, thank you, everybody. See you soon. Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.